Jim Hughes, Senator Scott Olslager, Representative Ross McGregor, Representative Dennis Murray, and I've been working on legislation, which they will tell you a little bit more about in just a moment. This legislation has to do with really bringing Ohio into the modern era as far as our ability to catch people who commit fraud. Fraud against the state of Ohio, fraud against the taxpayers of the state of Ohio. It will put us in the same position as 27 other states are today. States that are as diverse as Indiana and New York. There's actually no reason why Ohio should not have a False Claims Act. It's time for us to move forward. Medicaid is an essential program that protects the most vulnerable members of our society. If Medicaid is going to be sustained, we are going to continue to be a compassionate society, a compassionate state. We have to get Medicaid fraud under control. We have to have the money that's been set aside by taxpayers to be used for the most vulnerable. Our office, and I'm announcing today, is increasing the number of Medicaid fraud investigators by 1/3. This is a significant commitment from my office, and it's something that we believe will make a difference. But we need another tool, and the tool is a False Claims Act. It's appropriate that we are in the grant hearing room today because the federal False Claims Act began during the Civil War era, when contractors were spiking Union gunpowder with sawdust, prompting the creation of the first U.S. False Claims Act signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln. In 1986, President Ronald Reagan strengthened Lincoln's law to further protect U.S. taxpayers. Ohio needs its own False Claims Act to help uncover fraud that is going on undetected. A state False Claims Act will protect Ohio taxpayers from dishonest people doing business with the state. I want to make it very clear, this not only would include Medicaid fraud, this would include any time there is a contractor or anyone doing business with the state of Ohio who is making false claims, i.e. someone who is out there ripping us off. 7 states have False Claims Acts, including states as diverse as Texas, Indiana, New York, and California. Ohio has the second largest Medicaid program in the country without our own state False Claims Act. In February of this year, my office settled a federal whistleblower lawsuit alleging that CareSource committed Medicaid fraud. Of that settlement, Ohio received slightly over $10 million. That's good news. The not so good news is this. If the State False Claims Act had already been in place, Ohio would have received additional money from that settlement. We need our own State False Claims Act in Ohio. And as was the case with CareSource, we need whistleblowers with inside information to take legal action on behalf of the state. So people may ask, why do we need this? We need to encourage people to come forward to disclose this type of fraud. We need to protect them when they come forward, and we need to give them an economic incentive to do so. Some people say, well, don't we have auditors? Don't we have the ability to catch this fraud? We catch some of the fraud. But the truth is that a lot of the fraud we catch is well after the fact. An audit comes in and discloses something that has occurred months before, years before. Fraud's been going on, going on, going on. If you have a whistleblower who comes forward, as we did in the CareSource case, and the only reason that worked was because the federal government had their own False Claims Act. But if we can encourage people in our own cases to do that, we're going to catch a lot of fraud. Right now, when states recover fraudulent Medicaid reimbursements, they must return the federal government's share to the U.S. Treasury. However, as part of the Deficit Reduction Act of 2005, the federal government allows states with their own compliant False Claims Acts keep an extra 10 percentage points. So instead of Ohio getting 40% of recovery, Ohio will get 50% of recovery. The Care Source settlement underscores why my office has been working with State Senators Jim Hughes, Senator Scott Oestlager, Representative Ross McGregor, and Dennis Murray to craft our own False Claim Act. Our proposed legislation will accomplish several important tasks. First, it will encourage whistleblowers with knowledge of fraud to come forward and provide the protection for retaliation. Second, our proposed legislation would provide the whistleblowers with a share of the recoveries. Third, it would impose financial punishments on wrongdoers. And fourth, it would protect Ohio taxpayers. Although Medicaid represents a large portion of Ohio's budget, it's certainly not the only fiscal area subject to potential fraud and abuse. The Ohio False Claims Act would apply to any litigation seeking recovery of state funds, or state funds combined with federal funds that were obtained by submitting false information. Let me conclude before I turn it over to my colleagues, with one example. A recent example in Cleveland. Scott, come on up. As we used to say in Washington, Scott's been detained on official business. That was always what he said. It was always official business. I'm sure it was official business. Let me talk about a recent example in Cleveland where criminal cases were brought against more than a dozen contractors who bribed state employees and inspectors to improve work on bridges when they used improper paint, failed to prepare the surfaces properly, and painted in inclement weather. Repairs were expected to cost over $25 million, and only a small percentage of the damage was ordered to be collected in restitution and fines. Because we have no state False Claims Act, most of the money went to the U.S. Department of Transportation and not to ODOT. Our financial circumstances demand that we change this and that we maximize our resources. Enacting our false claims legislation would certainly be an important first step. And again, we can go after Medicaid fraud harder. With our 130 increase in the number of people who are working in our investigation unit, along with this additional tool. Let me now ask Senator Hughes to say a few words, and then our other colleagues. Thank you very much.
First of all, I want to thank the Attorney General for his leadership on this. Today, we are sending a strong message that fraud in the state of Ohio is not to be tolerated. As one who has prosecuted these cases, this is something we need to be doing. As the Attorney General stated, we are coming to age in terms of having our law updated with this. And this is taxpayers' dollars we're talking about. And I don't think I need to remind you in terms of the budget situation we're in. So any funds that we can recover is a necessity here to protect our taxpayers. That's what we're doing here, is protecting the taxpayers' money. And we're sending a strong message that if you commit fraud in the state of Ohio, you will be caught and you will be punished. With the leadership of the Attorney General, as well as my colleague, Senator Oestlager, Representative McGregor, we will get this bill through, and Ohio will be better because of it. Thank you.
Thank you to the Attorney General and my colleagues from the Senate for the opportunity to participate in this important piece of legislation. I look at my involvement with the false claims legislation as a natural extension of legislation that I've already been engaged with in terms of fraud reporting, that House Bill 66 that recently passed the House and now is over here in the Senate. And that, as the Attorney General said, there are very good statistics that show how fraud reporting can help capture people who are abusing very scarce resources. But it's even better if we can catch these people at the time. Often fraud reporting is in the past, after audits are done. To be able to catch it when it's happening and stop it immediately is going to be a much greater benefit to the Ohio taxpayer, particularly in these very difficult economic times. And we need to make sure that every dollar that is being sent to us from the taxpayers is being accounted for and used appropriately. That's imperative in this day and age. I'd also like to say that, as a business person, there are naturally some concerns on issues regarding a False Claims Act, but I'm going to make sure that we're doing this in a manner that is cognizant of businesses' concerns, and that the people who are behaving appropriately and are not wasting taxpayer dollars are not persecuted. And the people that really only need to worry are those who are conducting fraud. And certainly I appreciate working with Senator Oslager and Senator Hughes. My colleague, Representative Murray, couldn't be here today, but I know he too is very interested in this legislation. And again, we thank the Attorney General for allowing us to work with them on this important issue.
Thank you. I too want to join and thank Senator Attorney General DeWine for the work he'll be doing on this. My colleagues pretty summed it all up, but I think the bottom line is the taxpayers expect us to be good stewards of their dollars and use every available tool we have to ensure that those dollars are spent efficiently and for the projects to help the public of this state. So I too will look forward to joining my colleagues and the Attorney General getting this done.
Any questions?
You said you're adding a third, is there a number you can attest to that?
Yes, we're increasing by 1/3 the number of our Medicaid investigators. We're very proud of our investigator team. They've won national awards before I came in office, and so we have a good team. We're building on a very, very good team that we have, and we're very proud of the work they do. We're increasing their numbers by 1/3, frankly, because we think this is very, very important. It's a priority of our office.
You say around the numbers, you can say that.
Who's got numbers?
7.
We're increasing, we're adding 7.
7, yes, it's a new team of 5 agents, an attorney, and a special agent supervisor.
So it's a whole new unit.
So you have how many?
We've gone from 3 units to 4 units.
How many?
Is that right? So the total, what's the total now?
We'll have a total of 34 special agents, Medicaid special agents, once we add the additional staff.
When will the bill be introduced?
It's been introduced today. We'll get a number, it's in skeleton session today, we'll have a number today.
Just in the Senate, or will it be a companion bill in the House?
Companion bill in the House.
Why compensate people for being whistleblowers? And shouldn't they be doing the right thing anyway?
We need to not only compensate them, what also goes along with that is some protection. The care source case is rather interesting. Federal government, we had 2 nurses, as I understand the facts, 2 nurses who were seeing things that were going on. They were being asked to basically falsify information. They went to a lawyer, and they ostensibly went to the lawyers, my understanding, because they were afraid. They didn't want to lose their nurse's license. They weren't thinking about whistleblower and the I said, what do we do? Went to the lawyer was familiar with the federal government had a whistleblower statute. Whistleblower statute protected them from retaliation. And in the same sense, provided some incentive. So we've got 27 states that have used this. 27 states have a positive experience. The federal government has a positive experience. So the great thing about having 50 states is these are truly the laboratories of democracy. We can see what works and what doesn't work. Well, Ohio's waited long enough. It's worked in other states. This will bring money back to the state of Ohio and protect Ohio taxpayers. It will work. As Ross indicated, that is a concern. That has sometimes been expressed, but we have a history. We have a history of experience. And we have states as diverse as New York to Indiana. These are not, you have a number of states that are not. Some are so-called liberal states, some are blue states, some are red states. It seems to be working everywhere. There's no reason that Ohio, as large as it is, and with the significant challenges we face with Medicaid dollars, and this legislature, God bless them, is going to have to face some very, very tough choices about Medicaid and how they're going to deal with the ever-growing Medicaid cost. And we have an obligation, it seems to me, to preserve every single dollar that we put in Medicaid for people who truly need it and not have people ripped off. In the case of the care source, the allegation was that there were little children who were supposed to be checked, and these kids were never checked. So it's not just about saving taxpayers' dollars, It's making sure poor people, poor children are protected. It's making sure there's enough money there left so that poor children get the medical care that they need. We all want that. Now it's time that we put our law behind what our rhetoric is and put some teeth into Ohio law.
You know what?